Hi guys, welcome to CyberNet Security. Today we'll be talking about how we can install Ubuntu server on our VirtualBox. If you don't know how to install VirtualBox, I already produced a video that talked about the step-by-step guide on how you can install VirtualBox. VirtualBox is kind of a hypervisor where you install different or your various VMs on. So we talk about virtualization. And I will have to make a video of virtualization for you guys. So I will talk about how virtualization works, the differences between virtualization and containerization. These are two different technologies that are used in the computing world today. So today, as you guys can see my screen, today we'll be working with VirtualBox, and we'll be installing Ubuntu server. If you haven't seen a server before, wow, this today you'll be seeing your first Ubuntu server where what will be provided for you will be the terminal shell. So let's move on. So first and foremost, I already have VirtualBox installed on my machine. So we have to open VirtualBox. So kind of opening, yeah, currently this is VirtualBox, and I have two VMs running already on my VirtualBox. So well, for this purpose of this video, we'll be creating a new VM, an Ubuntu VM server from beginning to end. So okay, and before then, these are the prerequisites. You need to download an Ubuntu server image from the Ubuntu website. One, you have to install VirtualBox on your system, and you have to have a free memory space, free hard drive space that will be allocated to that of VM upon creation. So currently, as you can see here, I already have my VirtualBox, and I will show you guys my image, my Ubuntu image. If you can go to a file explorer, and my image is saved. I saved this in my OneDrive directory. So down here, yeah, these are different Ubuntu images that I have on my machine. So for today's purpose, we'll be using Ubuntu 2204 live server. We equally have Ubuntu 2204 desktop, but I will be making a video on where I will talk about the differences between desktop and server operating systems. In case, all right. So this is the image that we'll be using for this program. As you can see here, this file type is text image file. So let's go back to our VirtualBox. So here we have to create on machine. You create on new, or either you go through this route or come to your this point. You see create. Sorry. Sorry. So yeah, still new. So here now I will have to name my VM. The Ubuntu server that I'm about to install, I need to name it here. So let's just call it my Ubuntu server. And here, as you can see, machine folder. This is where, after I've created these VMs, where the file will be saved on my machine. So as you can see here, we have other VMs that I installed here previously, and I've been saving these VMs. Their folders in my VirtualBox VM directory on my machine. So now let's just go there and see what we have there. So let's go to my PC. Alright, let's go to my C drive, users, Clinton. That's where you have my VirtualBox VM. Yeah, as you can see here, we have just two folders here. These two folders are representing these two VMs that I have here running on my VirtualBox. These are where the files that are created on these VMs are being saved on my machine. You understand? As you can see here, the storage, you have the storage, you have the executable or the VM, you have the snapshots, you have the logs. So these are probably where Windows save all the files and the dependencies that this VM is running with. So let's go back to our process. So here now I already named it Ubuntu server. So here we need to choose the type of OS that we want to install, the type of VM OS that we want to install on this hypervisor, on this VirtualBox. So, and the type of OS we want to install is Linux. So Linux, what is the version of the OS that we want to install? Like I said, we want to install an Ubuntu. We have here, as you can see here, we have Oracle. We have different versions, different CPU architectures like 32-bit and 64-bit architectures for these different OS versions. So you have numerous of them. We have Ubuntu 64-bit, which we'll be using for this program. We have other types, other versions of Ubuntu Linux that we are going to be using. So why this thing comes up is because here we already chose Linux. So if I change this to Microsoft, and when we come down, sorry, if I change this to Microsoft, and what you see, when you come down here, the options changes. Here, what is being populated here are just Microsoft different OS types and versions. So that is for. But for now, we'll be working on Linux. So when I click on Linux, I will have to choose. We'll be using Ubuntu 64-bit. We have it somewhere, Ubuntu 64-bit. So that's what we'll be using for this program today. So here we click on Next. So here is where we choose the memory size. As you can see here, immediately I clicked on that, this file was automatically created. Immediately that file was created, this folder was automatically created. So inside that folder is where every configuration I'm doing on these settings will be saved. So memory size is simply your RAM size. Select the amount of memory, that's RAM in megabytes, to be allocated to this virtual machine. So we are going to be giving it 1 gigabytes, which is not bad. But make sure you don't exceed this green part when you are allocating. Like in my system, I have total of 8 gigabytes of RAM. So I can't come and give it anything around here, because as you can see from this indicator, this part is already in danger. So to be on the safer side, you should allocate space within this range, so it will not affect the way your own host machine, the way the speed and everything. Yeah, so let's give it, I say 1, yeah, 1024 is okay. So so let's click on Next. Here is the hard drive. So do not add a virtual hard drive. Create a virtual hard drive. Use an existing virtual hard drive disk, hard disk file. So here, so I can create a hard disk before now. So if I already have a hard disk on my machine, I can use an existing virtual hard drive and give it out to this machine to use. Understand? So now I already have I'm not going to use an existing virtual drive. I like creating virtual drives for my different VMs. Understand? I like creating a different their specific virtual drives for them. So there won't be, well, it's fine. I can use an existing virtual drive. It's not, there's nothing wrong with that. It's still nice. So here I will have to create, but here do not add a virtual hard drive. Here I can do not add a virtual hard drive. I can later on add a virtual hard drive if I can, because at this point I need to create a virtual hard drive. But in case you don't need to use an existing one, maybe you forgot to create a virtual hard drive before now, you can actually create this VM without a virtual hard drive. Then later on you can come and create a virtual hard drive for the machine, for the VM. So here we'll be choosing create a virtual hard drive disk now. So I click on create. So here they're asking you for the hard drive file type. So we have three different hard drive file type. We have the virtual disk, virtual box disk image. We have the virtual hard drive. We have the virtual machine disk. So these are three different types of hard drive types. So you can actually look at these three different types of hard drive, or we talk it on our next video, because there is a lot of things that we talked about in this particular stage. But for this purpose of this video, and for the time being, we have to work with virtual box disk image. So this is what we'll be using. So when I click on VirtualBox disk image, so here it says storage on physical hard drive. Is it want it to be dynamic allocated or fixed size? So the dynamic allocated hard drive file will only use space on your physical hard drive. As you can see, the dynamic allocated hard drive will only use space on your physical hard drive as it fills up to a maximum fixed size. Although it will not shrink again automatically when space on it is freed. Understand? A fixed size hard drive file may take longer to create on some systems, but it's often faster to use. Here now is the same thing. The two of them are using spaces on your hard drive. Understand? But the difference between them is this guy now. If I choose on dynamic allocated hard drive, the system, what the sizes that it will be using is determinant on the number of informations I have on the hard drive. It takes exactly what it needs from your hard drive. But when I use the fixed size, by default the system automatically allocates that whole hard drive size to that VM. You understand? So whether it is being used up or not is not his business. So that's but for the sake of dynamic allocation is what we'll be going with, because it kind of helps, it kind of gives me that flexibility whereby if I'm not using much on my VMs, my system will not have to give much space and not to save storage space on my system. So we'll be using dynamic allocated. So click on next. File location size, file location and size. So this is where you choose, this is where that hard drive will be saved on your directory. Like I said, everything I'm creating on this VM will be saved inside this Ubuntu server. This file that is being created here, everything I'm saving will be saved there, because when you check the directory, see that it's saving this hard drive inside that directory. But here you can equally choose a different path. If you want to save it on a different path, here you can equally choose a different path. You can rename it if you want to rename it. So these are different options that you have. So but I'm not changing the paths. The path is fine for me. So here you choose the size of the hard drive you want to choose. So by default, I already have been given 10 gig by default, but you can increase, you can either increase or decrease, but this 10 gig is fine by us. So but for the purpose of this video, we will be going with this 10 gig. So let's go to create. So now it's creating the hard drive. So as you can see, that hard drive, this machine has been created. So okay, we have set up the Ubuntu server. So now what we need to do is to add the ISO to it and start the installation. So what do we do now is, here now we have selected the Ubuntu server. We'll click on settings. That's the first stage. Here now what we have here is the settings that we can perform. These are all the settings we can perform on the VM. So the first setting that we need to, this is general setting. Yeah, this is where you can change the name that you already given to the machine. You have the advanced. If you want shared clipboard, means if you want to be able to copy files and source from your host machine to your VM, here you can enable that feature. Here you can see from host to guest. Here you can only copy from your host machine to your guest, which is your VM, or you can only copy from your guest to your host, or you can do bidirectional. Bidirectional is when the both sides can copy from each other and paste in the other. So for now we are going to leave it at disabled. So drag and drop simply is just the same thing. We can drag files from one machine to the other. We can drag files from the host machine and leave it up on the VM, or equally drag file from the VM and leave it on the host machine. So still the same process: host to guest, guest to host, and bidirectional. So, but on this for this program, for this particular video, we will be leaving it at disable. So description, this is where we give description about our VM. You can let's say this is my testing Ubuntu Ubuntu server VM. So you can leave a description to your VM. So this encryption, like if we are aware of BitLocker and so many other Dix encryption tools like VeraCrypt. So these tools are tools that where is this has to do with security. When you are not with your machine, for example, you lost your machine and you want your information to be safe on them without having a third party to access those information, we can perform this encryption on the VM. So, but for this video, we'll be leaving it as undisabled. Like we wouldn't have to be enabling the disk encryption. So this encryption has no. It's still you still have to use your VM just the way you do use them. It's not there's no interruptions when you enable this. It's just like toggling up a kind of a security, adding up like this is an additional layer of security when it has to do with data protection and us and so many of them. So here we are going to the system, move to the system. This is where you can actually change your RAM. You can change your RAM size. You can either change these are the boot order if we are aware of normal BIOS boot order on your host machine. For example, when you want to boot up your machine, you can either enter the boot settings. So here you can set up the boot order. Here the floppy disk, the optical hard drives, and the network. So these are different settings that are attached to it. So when you go to the processor, this is where you can give it cores, like you want it to have 2 CPU, you have to have it 3 CPU, you want to give it to 4 CPU. On my machine, I have a total of 4 CPU on my machine, so I can't give, like I said earlier before, don't give any value above the green part. So here, the highest I can give to it is 2 CPU, but for the purpose of this video, I'll be leaving it at 1 CPU. So execution cap. So here is the execution cap. As you can see, it's 100%. So extended features, we are leaving it to be at default. So when we go to acceleration is part of virtualization interface is at default. So like we all know, this is part of virtualization. This is where would I just say VMs in when you're using virtual machine, Virtualbox. Some VMs are created using on their own kernel. Ubuntu, the OS always comes with two parts of the OS, the kernel version and the user version. So, but whenever you are using a virtualization platform, just like hypervisors to create VMs, understand they are not running on the host kernel. You are just virtualizing the hardware properties of your machine. You understand? So each VM that you create has its own kernel and its own independent or isolated operating OS it is running on. So the para virtualization is not fully virtualized, because in one way or the other it utilizes the hosts features and host resources and so many of them. So the display is where you set the video memory, the monitor counts, and the scale vector. So remote display here, enable server if you want to use RDP on this machine. So that's just it. So going to storage, this is where we want to work on and to look at. So the storage part is where we can add the image that we downloaded earlier before, the Ubuntu server image 2204 server image that we downloaded earlier before. So this is where we'll be adding, just like your CD-ROM where you add disks and you install using your disk. So here now, as you can see here, our disk is still empty, so we need to attach or add that ISO image here so we can be able to install this Ubuntu server using that ISO image. So here we, as you can see here, this is the virtual disk image that we created earlier before now. So here now I want to add the image. So now we say add optical drive. Here is this other ID. So what we're using is add optical drive. So here now we said add optical drive. So we need to choose the sorry. So click on this empty on the disk. Here now we can add the image. So here now from this optical drive that we already have, because this already we already have one optical drive, so we don't need to create another optical drive. If you want to have two CD-ROMs on this VM, that is where you create an optical drive. Optical drives are kind of a way where you can add disks to your machines or add images to your machines. So here we already have an optical drive, so we click on the optical drive and we'll select the Windows Ubuntu. Select the Ubuntu, so choose disk file, click on choose this file. It takes us to this point. So here we go to our OneDrive, so from here we choose the Ubuntu image. What we are just seeing here is all the images we have on this directory. So here we are using 2204 live 7. So click on open here. So as you can see here, we have attached that image to our disk, our optical drive. So that's just it. So here we have other options, the audio options, we have the network here. We talk about we'll make a separate video that will concentrate on how talking about these adapters, these network adapters that hypervisors come with now, you can give to your VMs, understand. So here we have in these settings we have like 4 options of adapters we can use on this VM. So but for the meantime we are already using, as you can see, the only one we have enabled here is just the adapter one, which is running on the NAT. So NAT storage, we have different types of network types in VMs, in hypervisors. We have the NAT, we have the bridge adapter, we have the internal networks, we have the host only adapter, we have the generic driver, we have the NAT network, we have the cloud network, we have the not attached. That means when there is no network attached. That is what we mean by not attached. So in our next videos, we'll be concentrating on discussing on all these adapters listed here, and they are there are differences, and why each of them, why you need to use any of them. So for the main purpose of this program, we'll be using the NAT network. So you can check the advanced. Here is where you select the interface card on your machine. So for my system, this is what I'm using on my system. Understand? For my system, this is what I'm using. So that's why I'm going to select that, because that's what I should get internet to this VM through. Understand? This is the host network interface cards that we'll be using to get internet access to this VM. So let's go to, we have serial ports, we have the USB. You can choose any type of the USB. If you want to use the USB 2.0, if you want to use the USB 3.0, so you can use any of them. For this purpose, we'll be leaving it as default USB 2.0. So you have the shared folder. This is where you can create a shared folder from your host machine. From your host folder, you can create a shared folder here. So but we'll not be creating any shared folder. You have user interfaces. So this is where you set what you want to see on the panel, on the Windows panel of the VM when it's being created. So this is the things that you'll be seeing there. So these are the things that you're seeing there. So you can decide to show in front of, or you can uncheck if you don't want to see them. You can uncheck them if you don't want to see them. So you can uncheck them. So but for the main purpose of, we believe in it as default. We believe in it as default. So let's say okay. So now we have added the image to these settings. So the next step, the next stage of our installation is to run the installation. So after that, you click on, you can clone. These are different options you can take here. You can take snapshots, like saving the records, the present VM states of your system. Understand? This VM has different states, and at this point in time, we have not created a VM though. But when we create the VM, when it's in the operational stage, understand, we can actually take a snapshot of it and save our settings at that time. So in case of future breakdowns or downtimes and some other, we can easily go back to the previous snapshot. So now we need to start the installation. So you click on start. So here now we going to, you can either text the memory, test your system, your memory before you start the installation, or you can try and install at once. So we're going to use try and install at once. Click on try and install at once. So this installation, we are doing this installation without internet. So as you can see here, there is no internet on my machine, so it won't be downloading anything different from what it has with the image is installing, understand? So that's just it. But you can equally install with internet, where you can, if you want to download some other packages repositioning as the installation is going on. Sorry. So as you can see here, is kind of configuring all the settings, configuring all the file system of the Ubuntu server. So what we can see, Ubuntu 202204.1 Ubuntu server. So it's waiting for the cloud in it, but there's no internet, so it might not have a connection. So now here you select the language for your VM. So we are using English, enter. So here now is choosing the keyboard layout. We'll be using the English US, so that's my preferred keyboard layout. So we click on done. Click on done. So here now you choose the base for the installation of Ubuntu server minimized. Minimized has to do with a you will minimize it with the basic things that Ubuntu needs. But when you're using Ubuntu server, yeah, kind of every packages that been that the server works with should be installed. So the default install contains a curated set of packages that provide a comfortable experience for operating your Ubuntu. So function has been customized to have a small runtime footprint. So the two differences that the Ubuntu server is kind of bigger. The package that will be installed in this process is kind of bigger. It's installing more of what Ubuntu will be running on. But the minimized version is just giving you the strictly what the packages that you need minimally to run Ubuntu server. So, but we're leaving it at normally Ubuntu server. So we won't be using the minimized version of it. So click on done. So here now is where you configure the internet IP, your IP address of the VMs. But in this case, we are not installing with internet, so we might leave it as a default. So let's click on done. So here, if we have any proxy address that we want, so proxy address is kind of a, will I just say, a path where your machine passes before it gets to the internet. Understand? If we have a kind of will I just say a proxy, you can have proxies where you want to hide the IP addresses of your VMs. Understand? You don't want the public to know the exact IP address of your VM. You can actually add the IP address where your VM, anytime it wants to connect to the internet, it has to go to that proxy, to the proxy server, before it gets to your destination. So when somebody is trying to perform a kind of an nmap search, a scan, or try to do enumeration on your machines, the IP address that he will be getting first will be this proxy IP address. So your own VM IP address will be hidden from the public. So that's just it. That's what proxy address means. But for this situation, we won't be using any IP address for this. So click on done. So the mirror address is kind of where the repository where you will be installing or will be getting our updates or application packages updates, and where we'll be installing things from when we install this Ubuntu. So but we're leaving it at default Ubuntu repository. So default Ubuntu repository. So let's click on done. So you see connects continue without updating. So we can't update because there's no internet, so we continue without updates. So here now we can do certain things here. So we can either use the storage that we created, or we can create a logical volume group for this particular like kind of partitioning. on the for this VM. But for the meantime, we will not be doing going through that route. There won't be doing any partitioning on this video, so we'll be continuing. Let's continue. So done. So here, this is the file system that we are using. So we can either increase the file system or we can leave it at what it is now. So let's continue. Done. So here we say, are you sure you want to continue? Here, continue the installation process. So here you name your machine like you said, like I did earlier. We'll name it Ubuntu server. So the server name, that should be your name, but okay, I'll still leave it as Ubuntu server. So your server name, I can still call it Ubuntu server again. Ubuntu server. Okay, I think I made a mistake, sorry. Okay, okay, there's no space, it's not permitted here. So so pick a username. This is the username that you will be using to log into the VM once it's created. So pick a username. So we will give it test as my username. So pick a password. I can give it a password. Make sure your password is 8 characters minimum. So I have some password that I love using on programs like this. So sorry. So I think password is there. So click on done. So install OpenSSH. We don't have any network, so we have to move on. Press tab and just select the install SSH server and move on. So click on done. So here is the final stage of the Ubuntu installation. So after here, we will have to restart this machine for us to start using our server. So let's just give it some time to finish up. So it won't take much time to install. So it's installing the kernel. To be taking time, you just have to give it for like 3 minutes to complete installation, because we are installing without network. If there had been a network, it will have to download some packages before, so which will take more time. So but we are installing Ubuntu without network, so I think we are still fine, but it's just gonna be faster before than normal. So I'm going to be pausing this video, uh, so I will continue as soon as the installation is complete. So I think the installation is has been completed. It's trying to update before it reboots, but we don't have internet. Let's remember we didn't install without internet, so we have to reboot now. So let's go to reboot now. So we are rebooting the machine. So once we reboot the machine, we are good to go. So as you can see, it's unmounting what the image we entered in our CD-ROM. So for us to unmount, we might have to press enter to unmount the image that we added to our optical drive. So enter to unmount. So let's maximize. So here now we have to log in. So let's not forget what we used as our username is test. So test, enter the password we used. I will have to enter my password here, then enter. So boom, we have our Ubuntu server 2204. So thank you guys, and thank you for your patience, and I hope this video served you, and I would love to hear from you guys, your comments, and if you have any questions to answer, you can ask your questions I'm always there to guide and to direct you on how best to, and I will be equally there to guide you on if in case you bump into errors and problems during the installation process, if through by either you are using internet or you are not using internet, or you want to still install offline. That's fine, the choice is yours, and I'm open to guide you anytime, anywhere, and anytime. Just drop in your comments. I'm there to respond to your comments and give you a better response. Thank you, and don't forget to subscribe on this channel for more very good and resourceful videos that will be coming your way. Thank you guys, and do have a lovely day.